Let's see here. Sorry, I don't really have a better setup at the moment for a number of reasons. But anyway, I'm here to talk about today AMD's very recent release of their B550 chipset motherboards. Very recent. 2 days ago on Tuesday, and today is Thursday, June the 18th, 2020. This is very recent, 2 days ago. And the thing I'm here to talk about is people have a dissenting opinion on B550 in that they think it sucks. Not even that they think it's bad, that it's bad, that it just sucks. And I think, I understand, number one, this isn't a call out. I really understand how they'd come to that opinion. I think it's actually exceptionally logical. But I think a mix of circumstances and sort of not seeing the trees from the forest, and that way around, by the way, not the forest from the trees, they're kind of missing the point of B550. So I really think that they are actually wrong, but I really understand how they would come to this conclusion. It actually makes a lot of sense. So that being said, there's sort of two disclaimers. One, I'm sold on it. Literally. I bought a motherboard for myself, and I ordered an entire build for my friend with the other one I was cross-shopping with, partly because you can only order one per person right now. But I think that adds credence to what I say, because I really think that I obviously actually think that it's worth my hard-earned money, and I even think that it's worth my friend's hard-earned money. Two, it's from the perspective of a kind of different build, an atypical build. But I actually don't even think it's atypical. I think it's just one that people don't really talk about. I'm going to actually wait until Ryzen 4000 comes out so I can buy an APU and not have a graphics card in the first slot, so I can get a 24-port SAS host bus adapter card and put it in that fastest CPU Direct PCI Express X16 slot, because I have an emphasis on later storage expansion. It's going to be a workshop computer. That's important. That influenced me, but I don't think that really changes the relevancy of my opinion. I think it just, I think this once again gives me more credence. It led me towards the conclusion. It gave me the necessary perspective. Okay, that being said, like I said, people seem to think that B550 sucks, that it's not worth it. And the way I came to my conclusion that it's absolutely good, it's great maybe even. I think I'll hold off on saying great until I use it, but we'll say it's good. Is I took the ordinary, the criticism everyone's having, it's so expensive, you may as well buy a cheap X570, and I thought about that, right? So the two motherboards, the one I bought for myself is the Asus Tough Gaming B550 Plus. And the one I ordered for my friend is the ASRock Steel Legend. And they are $170 and $160 respectively. And you go look up $160 and $170 X570 boards. They're actually pretty good, sort of. They're expensive for the money, but they're good. And you compare them to these two boards, then you see that you'd rather B550, in my opinion. So for instance, both these boards come with 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. Many of these X570 boards only have 1 gigabit Ethernet. They'll have other things, or in the price point, or you'll notice they definitely don't have Thunderbolt. Both of these have Thunderbolt headers. You have to buy a proprietary add-on card to give Thunderbolt, but they both have Thunderbolt headers from the get-go. You can't get that, I think, for less than like $250 or $280 or an X570. Like, forget about it. Like, that was one of the things that's big for me, that I could get Thunderbolt. Or you'll notice they don't ship with Wi-Fi in any form. Both of these boards don't have Wi-Fi, but they have another M.2 slot for Wi-Fi that you can add later. These X570 boards don't have that in any form. Or the X570 boards, all these boards, they'll have a USB-C and a high-speed USB-C and USB-A at the back, But these X570 boards, it'll be USB 3.1. On these, they both have both an A and a C, and they're both USB 3.2, right? And all these features aren't even that big of a deal. It's that it adds up. You get all of these things, right? Or maybe the X570 board will have like all of this, but it'll only have one M.2 slot, and that sort of sucks. So, and I still think this sort of opinion is even relevant for normal people, because I think PCI Express 4.0 is sort of underrated. Like, you'll care in a few years when you got to buy a new graphics card. The higher end graphics cards are edging at saturating USB 3.0, so they'll definitely saturate USB 3.0 this time around, and in a few generations mid-tier cards will be saturating 3.0, and you'll see less of a point to upgrade and want to have to buy the whole thing again. And I don't want to have to do that. I don't think anybody else should want to have to do that. And then if you try to go down compared to a B450 motherboard, a lot of these things you can't even get on B450. As far as I know, there's literally no B450 motherboards with Thunderbolt, for instance. And I want Thunderbolt. Now, that's another thing, that because it's a workshop motherboard, I care about that a lot. I think I want it literally in a different room. Resin printing. Resin printing's kind of stinky, and actually it can irritate your lungs. You need ventilation for resin printing. So the room might end up at the temperature of the outside all year round. During the summer, that's bad for most of the computer. During the winter, the SSDs actually don't like cold. If I have a liquid cooler in that, it's not ideal. Maybe we might get -10 here. And I'd like it in a different room, and that can be like almost 7 feet long, 2 meters, and it'll plug into the back of a Thunderbolt 3 enabled monitor, and it'll have what they normally have. It'll have this hub, and it'll have all these things, and you'll plug in your keyboard and your speakers and your mouse into that, and maybe have a media reader and some hub to do things with the micro SD cards some of them use, and etc. Or even if I don't do that, if it's in a completely different part of the room, to be near the 3D printers I want it to control, if I want it to be directly hooked up to them, etc. I really care about Thunderbolt 3. The fact that I can get it at all is incredible to me, for sure, for it not being $300 to get Thunderbolt 3. I'm elated. I don't care that I have to buy another card. I don't even need it right now, but the fact that I can do it all, good, great. So you notice that. You notice you lose a lot of these features from X570, and you just don't get any of them from B450. But that's because, in my opinion, it's better to explain that this is watered down X570 than improved B450. It is the successor to B450. It's not a better B450. It is the thing after it. So it will be mid-range, but it's not necessarily equivalent at all. And you notice that with these features, a lot of these you won't get them on B450, or won't get it unless you get the best B450 motherboard. But I think all of this has even only come to pass because it's a year late. Ryzen 3000 launched a year ago. If B550 launched even maybe 8 months ago, but definitely 10 months, if it was there, especially when a lot of things went on sale this holiday, and it was alongside B450 to buy, people would have got the point. And they would have seen what you got. And I think that would have also alleviated the recent fiasco where AMD wasn't going to support Ryzen 4000 on B450 at all, and they went back and went, all right, we'll do it on some 4000 series processors for some B450 motherboards. And they probably would have been able to stick to those guns if B550's been here the whole time. Because people would have if they hit this point, they would have went, I guess I should have bought B550. Or, there would have been more buyer's remorse than unhinged fury. I'm confident a lot of people would have been really mad anyway. But it would have made a lot more sense, and there would have been more people in both positions, and they wouldn't have felt bad. They would have went, I saved money, I only got B450. Okay, the whole, they would have known, they would have felt that, because B550 would have been here the whole time. then people would have noticed that it's watered down X570, that it's like all of the features X570 gets, but not everything is at PCI Express 4.0. So to illustrate that more concretely, which we can do now that it's released, you see that that's the thing. There's the same amount of lanes to the chipset on B550 as X570, but they're at PCI Express 3.0 instead of 4.0. That means they're at half the speed. So you have half the bandwidth to divvy up between things. So that's actually why I picked the Asus board. The Asus board runs its second M.2 slot at 4x, at 4 lanes. Only at PCI Express 3.0, mind you, but at 4. The trade-off is that the ASRock board has so many USB ports. It might have like 8 USB 2.0 ports on the back to begin with, and then the 3.1 ports, and then 3.2 ports. And you definitely notice that because the Asus board doesn't even have front panel USB-C, which sort of sucks. I think I'm going to do something like route that rear 3.2 USB-C port to the front somehow. I only really need one. So I'm more disappointed that it's the back than that it only has one. But that's why I made that decision, because think about it, in a few years, the SSDs you can buy definitely saturate PCI Express 3.0. So in a few years, when they're not probably saturating 4.0, but they're 75% of the way there, oh man, like I'd put that old one on that second slot. If it was on the ASRock board, it'd probably be a third the speed, and that would really suck, and I don't want to do that. That sounds really sucky to me. But again, I'm also thinking like maybe 8 or 12 years in the future, if I'm having a system with like almost 24 hard drives in it, right? So my priorities are a little different, but I still think it's relevant because the highest tier graphics cards, not even necessarily the Titan does. The Titan saturates PCI Express 3.0. I think. I guess I don't know. But I am confident it's close if it doesn't. But the current ones near saturate 3.0. So the next gen RTX 3000 series, the top ones will, and they'll actually benefit from 4.0. And so in a few years, when they're using, let's say, 75% of the bandwidth of 4.0, and the mid-tier cars are saturating 3.0 or more, there'll be no point for you to really refresh this system if you were on B450 and only had PCI Express 3.0. You'll care. You'll go, crap, what's the point? I may as well buy a whole new system. And everyone's complaining about like a $40 expected price difference between what they thought B550 was going to be. And so that's what we're griping over, in my opinion, that 40 bucks. You'll care about it a few years from now when you think that you feel like you need a new processor and a new motherboard alongside you're trying to just refresh it. You could just maybe refresh it with a new SSD and a new graphics card, but nope. You're going to need a new processor and a new motherboard, and that might need a new cooler. You'll need new everything. So you just probably build it all over again. So I think that it's relevant for anyone anyway. So I think that it's good, even within AMD's own ecosystem. But even outside of that, I think that it's a great buy. Like on these Intel boards that are in the same tier, you can't even RAM overclock. Now, granted, that is significantly more relevant on AMD. But, you know, like, things like that aren't held back from you. You can overclock on all these B-series motherboards, I think. Maybe just not the lowest ones. And these Intel boards could only take up to the 10 core. The new 900, the 10900. 10900K. But not X, by the way, that's confusing. The 10900K. And some of these better B550 boards could take the 16 core 3950X or 3950X XT that's about to debut. And they could definitely take the 12 core and super definitely take the 8 core all at a cheaper price point. So I think that on features, what you can get the peripherals, and on overclocking, and on available processor that you can get for the money, both in amount of cores and total performance, that it's still competitive also against Intel on every level, and that it's still a great buy. So I think that B550 is just, it is good. It's just 100, it is good. And that people just don't realize its point and its purpose. And entirely because it's a year late. If it had been around earlier, we would have been in this situation where we realized it, and we would have been in that perspective. And think about it, we are. Intel Fall already launched 10th gen. We're getting RTX 3000 now. We're going to get Radeon 6000 now, right? We're getting those midterm refresh 3600 XT, 3700 XT, and 3900 XT AMD processors, right? We're getting all that, and B550 only finally comes out. We're about to get Ryzen 4000, and I'm waiting. I'm going to wait on it for an APU. You know, we're thinking about the next generation already. It skews our perspective completely. So, to recap, I think the dissenting opinion that B550 sucks is just completely incorrect. But it's not a call out. I think that's completely logical and otherwise reasonable opinion to end up at. I think that it's just misguided. That B550 is a sum of its whole. It's all these things that you can get for the price that are a lot more money on X570. It's just that literally everything is PCI Express 4.0. Makes sense, right? It's water on X570. And things that you literally can't get on B450 at any price point because it's the actual next generation, right? And it's also colored by our attitude that we had to wait a year for it. And like I said, I understand that because I waited a year for B550. I wasn't going to buy into it until B550 came out, and I'm annoyed at that, so I completely understand. I actually get it because I bought it because I waited a year. That sucks. And that altogether colors the perspective, and I believe that's what makes people think that B550 sucks, but I don't think that it sucks. I think that it's good in its own ecosystem and good competitively against Intel in every sense, every box checked, in every way. Thank you for your time. I hope you consider B550 if it makes sense for you. I'm not saying it makes sense for everyone. People might really want single core performance even more. 10th gen Intel, the 10600 is actually competitive. That might make more sense for you if you don't care about PCI Express 4.0 as much. I still think you should, but or maybe you really need PCI Express 4.0. Maybe you need 3 M.2 slots. X570 is for you. And you don't care about any of that. B450 is probably for you. That's okay, but I don't think that any of that should stop you from considering B550 because I think that it's good. And I mean it. Like I said, I bought it, and I'm going to build a system for my friend with it, and that's having built two 3900X X570 builds for two other friends over the past year. I've built X570, and it made more sense for them because they have 2080 Ti's that they have very high-end systems.